ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio. What's up, nerds? ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM, Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. Is Bruce Arians wasting? Is he wasting Tom Brady? Is he wasting the last year maybe of, well, Brady's going to play more, but at least average quarterback play out of the GOAT? You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We're going to get a live NFL game during the show tomorrow. More on that in a few. Be a part of Max Kellerman Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line, 888-SAY-ESPN. ESPN Nation is presented by Dr. Pepper. It's official. College football's back, and so is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to a nice cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. And by the way, it's Giving Tuesday. If you've heard about this, you're not sure what it is. Basically, if you're able, please join us by going to v.org/donate. That's v.org/donate to give to the V Foundation, at the V Foundation, for cancer research as they work tirelessly to find a cure. It's needed now more than ever. Hashtag never give up. We're going to get into that a little later, but first it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Carson Wentz threw his NFL-high 15th interception and took 6 more sacks last night. He did complete 25 of 45 passes. That's like the bright spot. Ooh, 25 out of 45. Well, that ain't much more than 50% now, is it? I didn't major in math now, but I know 25 out of 50 would be 50%. 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And by the way, that like weird Hail Mary at the end of the game, come on, get out of here. Eagles lost 23-17, Week 12. That concludes Week 12 to the Seattle Seahawks last night. By the way, an historically bad defense. 5 straight series to start the game. 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Hey, try running the ball, Pederson. Give the ball to one of your running backs. Miles Sanders is pretty good. You don't have to, we have Warren Sharp on this show all the time saying, the most predictable thing is you're running it on first down. Who says you have to run it on first down? But how about second or third down? How about some down? Choose a down, Pederson. Give it to a running back. It's so tough, too, because the Eagles' defense is playing their guts out, right? And Pederson's it was the kind of, okay, let me start from the top. Wentz got to go. If you can get rid of that contract, what have I been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks? Remember like a month ago when I said trade him for Nick Foles? Well, Nick Foles wouldn't do any better with, no kidding, genius. Of course Nick Foles wouldn't do any better with this Eagles team. Although he did take over an Eagles team that was dead in the water the year after Nick Foles led them to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl MVP. He did take over a team that Carson Wentz had been quarterbacking to the tune of a 5-6 record. And Nick Foles took over, and they almost won out and went to they may have won out, and they went to the playoffs, and they beat the Bears at Soldier Field, almost beat the Saints at New Orleans also. So, who knows? But let's assume Foles wouldn't do any better with this team than Wentz. Maybe even does worse, if that's possible. So what? Nick Foles had a modest contract. They gave him an upper-middle-class quarterback contract. Carson Wentz is getting paid like he's a top 5 quarterback. They should have done that deal if they could have when the time was right. And by the way, I think the Bears would have bitten because of Frank Reich and the fact that they need a mobile quarterback like Trubisky's mobile, but he can't throw it down the field, but Wentz can also throw it down the field. I'll bet you the Bears would have bitten. But now, I don't think anyone bites. Yeah, now you might be stuck with Wentz for the time being. Meantime, Wentz is awful. They got to burn this whole thing down. Pederson, as I said, doesn't give the ball to a running back. But not only that, Wentz is something like -3 yards at a certain point, right? Remember that early in the game? And he gives the ball to Hurts. Pederson gives the ball to Hurts. A pre-snap penalty. What was it like? I forgot. 2nd and 14, something like that. I don't remember what it was. And Hurts throws a 6-yard completion. Oh, my God. A 6-yard completion. That's like, oh, my. He's amazing. Gave the ball right back to Wentz. Wentz took a sack. Right back to Wentz. Pederson was coaching like a guy who wants out. By the way, you want to know a guy who wants out? You're on the Seattle 15. It's 4th and 4. It's an 11-point game. And you go for it. There's 8:40 left in the game. You go for it. Well, you're going to have to score 8 points at some point. You're going to shut up. Let's stop it. It's 4th and 4. You're also going to have to score twice. So how about scoring once right then with a field goal? How about that? Try that one. That is a coach who wants out. And by the way, the GM, do you remember when they didn't trade for DeAndre Hopkins? And the stated reason was, a lot of teams wanted DeAndre Hopkins, but it was going to cost. They didn't want to give up that 2nd-round pick. All right, Roseman's going to do something with that 2nd-round pick. He's going to bundle it with the first, move up, and grab CeeDee Lamb. I guess not, because he could have used it to grab DeAndre Hopkins. Nah, not that either. He said Rieger, that's the guy, Rager, however you pronounce it. Because remember that? He runs a 4.2 40. It was like some superhuman 40 time that you heard about that was like, it turns out in the combine it was closer to 4.5 than 4.3, right? And Rieger he can't get separation. He can't, like, what are they talking about? Forget about, like, oh, he could have had DK Metcalf. Everyone could have had DK Metcalf. And by the way, the weird thing about Metcalf is everyone knew he was really good, and yet everyone still passed on him. Every fan knew, like, oh, I hope my team gets DK Metcalf. And everyone passed on him. It was crazy. So I'm not even talking about not grabbing Metcalf. I'm talking about you need to get Carson Wentz weapons because he can't elevate the team by himself, even though he's getting paid to. You also need help on the defense, but you can't afford any of that stuff because you gave the quarterback $100 million. So, boy, you better get the draft right. But the 2nd-round pick that Roseman didn't use, he chose not to use it to grab Hopkins in a trade or to bundle it and move up and grab CeeDee Lamb. Not only did he take Rager, but then he used that 2nd-round who can't get separation and is not nearly as fast as advertised. But then he can't. By the way, Jefferson, a lot of guys were available, right? But then he can't, or he takes that 2nd-round pick, and what does he turn it into? Jalen Hurts. He turned it into Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts is showing so little at practice at the worst quarterback in the league, because Carson Wentz's numbers say he's the worst in the league. He's lost to every single opponent he's faced in terms of the quarterback matchup. Every single opponent outplayed Wentz. Every single time this year, look it up. Outplayed him. Now, if you say, well, all these things are wrong around Wentz, okay, fine. Let's say Wentz would be low average if everything was right. Low average, he's getting paid $100 million. And Hurts is so bad, apparently, in practice, he can't take Wentz's job. But by the way, when he got it, they put Hurts in the game, he did a little something, took him right out. Roseman's got to go. Pederson's got to go. And if they can get rid of Wentz, they got to get rid of him too. Although, to tell you the truth, I'm a Giants fan. So what I really should be suggesting is keep Roseman and Pederson right where they are. And by the way, Wentz, he's doing great. See, everyone else is saying, Wentz is great, Wentz, all this, everyone else's fault. They're pointing fingers, it's everyone else's fault. So Wentz didn't have to work on anything, really. That's why he says at the post-game presser a couple weeks ago, I'll never really know, I guess. I'll always be walking that line when not to try to force things and stuff, but that's just the way we do things around here. Oh, my God. So listen to what Wentz had to say after the game.
I mean, we're frustrated. We're frustrated. I know I'm frustrated. I hate losing. And, it's very frustrating to have this result, these last couple of weeks and to be where we're at this season. But the crazy thing about this league and this division especially is it's still wide open, and guys know that. And, we're looking ahead to next week, getting this thing turned around and getting it going in the right direction and hopefully, surprise some people.
That was Straight Talk. Straight Talk Wireless, everything for less only at Walmart. I mean, I was giving you straight talk. Wentz was giving you happy talk. But look, that's the right attitude. Like, I don't mind Wentz being upbeat and trying to focus on the positive, not just saying, oh, shucks, I need to be better. I get it. I'm just saying that my next guest, Dan Orlovsky, if I had to pin Wentz's problems on one person in the world, I would pin it on you, Dan Orlovsky, who's joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. Dan, it's you. Everyone knows you're the young ascending football mind on national TV. You break down plays like no one else. So Wentz turns on the TV all last year. Oh, Dan Orlovsky says I'm doing great. I must be, I'm in the MVP race according to Orlovsky. That Kellerman guy is crazy. And you, Dan Orlovsky, you enabled him. And look what we have now, the worst quarterback in the league. What do you have to say for yourself?
I think the first thing that I have to say for myself is, trust me, my ego is no problem. So you telling me that I have that much power is only going to make it worse. I don't need people telling me that's the case. So I could have an issue with my ego. Listen, man.
But Dan,
I said this morning.
Uncle Ben said, didn't you ever watch Spider-Man?
Yeah, of
Dan,
course.
Uncle Ben said it. With great power comes great responsibility. Don't you have to wield your power more responsibly than just convincing Carson Wentz that he doesn't stink?
This is what I love about you Carson Wentz haters, because you're the absolute leader of the pack. That last year never happened in your guys' eyes. Like, last year never happened. And I'm not a person who wants to talk about the past. No. Last year never happened to Max Kellerman. Like, I said this morning to you. For what happened last year and the decimation of injury and the fact that they went on that run and won the division, that's not normal. That should not happen. And you just pretend like it didn't happen.
The worst division of all time.
I don't care if it was
the worst division of all time, Dan.
This year.
Yeah, until this year.
Listen, but you pretend.
Yeah, this year's even worse. But last year,
you pretend like it didn't happen.
Come on.
You pretend like while it did happen.
Wait, when you say it, you mean the injuries?
Yeah, you pretend like him taking practice squad players and a decimated team to win a division never happened. While doing that,
let's stop the crazy
while doing
talk.
that,
let's stop
doing something historical. Like, you pretend that never happened. And so this is your year. I said this morning right now that he's playing bad football, and I got to hold the L on Carson Wentz for the year. But you guys have short-term memory, and I'm impressed by it.
You were a man about that. You held that L on TV, literally held the L that your daughter had made on television and admitted you took the L. You're a mensch, Dan Orlovsky. Nevertheless, mensch is a Yiddish word that means human being in the best sense of the word, in case anyone's wondering. But at any rate, I'm willing to accept the fact that injury kind of started the ball rolling or exacerbated what may have been bad habits. And Wentz tried to compensate and therefore overcompensated for bad play around him or a lack of talent, whatever it is. All that may be true. All I'm saying is what I noticed in the second half of last year was a lot of regression from Wentz. Of course, he's capable of miracle throws. He has high-end talent, but he's not doing it consistently. And Dan, you have to admit this. Like, I'm proud of myself. I saw this, last year. Like, is it coincidental that he's now got these problems, or was I noticing something?
Question?
Are you saying it was complete coincidence?
Can I ask you a question? All right, so here's what I don't understand with your viewpoints on the situation, and I don't agree with. Last year, he has tremendous success in the last 7 games, like 18 touchdowns, 4 picks, 70% completion percentage. And your thought is he was still regressing. The only reason why the success was had was because he was playing against bad defenses. Okay, fine. That's your opinion. I completely disagree with it. Then, and that was with the practice squad players and a decimated team. Then this year, playing with a bunch of backups and a decimated team, he's struggling. And even last night did struggle against a defense that's historically poor that you would probably group into a historically poor division from last year. So how come last year he gets no credit from you for what he did against bad defenses, but then this year, playing against the bad defense in last night's game, it's like, whoa, we couldn't even do it versus a bad defense. Those two things can't come from your mouth.
Well, because I'll tell you why. Okay, I will tell you why. Because and then I would like you to answer my question for me, but I will tell you why first, okay? because the regression that I noticed in the second half of last season, and it was pronounced against the NFC East teams against whom his numbers got healthy, because I saw all the other quarterbacks in that sad sack division play better against the teams that Wentz was beating by the skin of his teeth than Wentz had played. And we're talking about a rookie in Daniel Jones and a bunch of backups, right? Like, so that's number one. Number two, the regression, and the reason I blame you, I'm not even kidding. I think you, like he has so many enablers, including his apologists in the media, to tell you the truth. He did not have to fix anything. So I think it continued. He had a downward trajectory in terms of his field vision, trusting what he sees, his internal clock, ball security, playing hero ball. Like, there were so many things going wrong that it continued on a downward trend until this year. No, the things that I was saying last year, now no one can deny it. Now you can point to injuries and this and that, but at least now it's undeniable. This is what I want to know from you. Is it coincidence that I said what I said at the second half of last season, and then this is happening, or was I actually seeing something, in your opinion? I trust your football opinion. I want to know, was I noticing something, or is this pure coincidence?
No, I think that what you were saying last year, I did not see. I can't agree with that, but I will say that what you were saying and what you have said this year has certainly shown itself. Yes, that is accurate, that he is hesitant with the football. He's been for the great majority of this year. He's unconfident in what he's looking at. He's playing slow within the pocket. So the things that you have been saying for a couple weeks, I think have shown themselves a lot. I don't believe that it's been a consistent pace. He had a stretch there where 3 weeks he was back to playing good football. I think, yes, the things that you were saying, I can sit here and say, yes, Max Kellerman, you were accurate with those thought processes. My question would be to you, because I like going back at you with stuff, is you would sit here right now today, take the financial aspect out about these things, but you would sit here today and would you take a amount of money, of your money, and bet that Carson Wentz will never be a top 10 quarterback again?
Yeah, I mean, yes, he could have flashes here and there a couple of weeks, but yes, he'll never be a fixture there. I think he's that broken, Dan. I think that also the lesson for me, and I'll use a low-end example and a high-end example. Jay Cutler on the low end and Matthew Stafford on the high end. You can go broke waiting for a guy, well, because it's a little unfair with Stafford, right? He's in a terrible organization, and he has a lot of talent. But you could go broke waiting for the guy who shows you glimpses to take you to the promised land. Like, if this was year 2 or 3, I would say, yeah, come on, Wentz got too much high-end talent. He is incredibly talented, and he's very tough. And by the way, people talk about how smart he is in a football sense. I'm willing to believe that he's shown that. But it's year 5. He's making mistakes in year 5 that are shocking to me. Dan, the reason it sounds like I'm so hard on him is because I was so high on him. You know, like I saw the things that you talk about, but little by little, that's been eroded. First because of injury, and then because I just think he has had too much power in the organization. I think he had too much power. He's 28 now. Like, I don't know. You have to show me an example. Well, you brought up a good example. You want to bring up the example that you brought up on TV today of a guy who looked like a bust, had never done what Wentz did. We all called a bust, and now he's balling.
Tannehill? Yeah, I mean,
yep, Tannehill.
Listen, I think it's you got to be very careful about sitting here and going quarterback. We've seen quarterback do, quarterback can't ever do again. Like, there's only 32 of these guys on the planet, and there's probably only 12 that have the talent to be really good at it, at least at the NFL level. And I think you got to be very careful to go, because we did that about Ryan Tannehill. Oh, Ryan Tannehill, he can't play. Really? Was he with a coach that, you know, wasn't a really good coach? And was he with people around him that wasn't very good? Oh, Derek Carr, 3 years ago, Derek Carr sucks. Why'd they pay him all that money? Really? Is Derek Carr really bad, or does he have no receivers that can win? And does he have a coach that doesn't have any vision? That's what I'm saying, like, in Matthew Stafford. I was with Matthew Stafford. Everyone's, oh, Matthew Stafford stinks. Really, guys? Because I was with Matthew Stafford from 2014 to 2016. He was playing top 5 football with a good coaching staff and adequate talent around him.
Yeah, Stafford But Stafford never came. Listen, I understand that's an organizational issue, but he never came close to delivering a Super Bowl. And I would say Tannehill needed a change of scenery. He needed to switch franchises. I know the argument is, look, it's easier to move Roseman and Pederson out than it is to move Carson Wentz. You might be right, Dan. If you can't move the contract, you're stuck with him for the next 2 years, and you got to hope for the best and bring in a new coach and a new GM. I'm saying if you can somehow unload that contract and get out from under Wentz, let me ask you, if you could get out from under Wentz, Dan, would you? And you start again?
Heck no. I think that's absolutely ludicrous. I'm literally 10 months removed from this guy breaking NFL records. Listen, you got to ask yourself, do you think he can be great again? And if you believe that as an organization, an owner, a general manager, then the decision becomes, can Doug Pederson get him his confidence back? Confidence has been shaken. So
Dan,
I would not move from Carson Wentz. Absolutely not.
Dan, we didn't even get to talk about Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, Cam Newton. We'll do that next week. Thank you very much. Recent number one pick who took his team to the Super Bowl. Is he about to get benched? Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Today is Giving Tuesday, a global day of giving. And it's also the first day of ESPN's V-Week. We can all be a part of something big today by supporting cancer research, which is needed now more than ever. If you are able, give now at v.org/donate. 100% of what you give